Julie, got to ask you about this big beat. What do you make of it, given the chip crisis and the supply issues that everyone else seems to be dealing with?
Yeah, I give credit to Apple. They continue to stun despite the chip shortage and the supply chain issues. What we see from our side is consumer demand for the kind of products they sell is still very strong. We saw 19% of consumers buy a new laptop in the past 6 months. We see 76% of consumers using streaming audio, another 50% with streaming video. The demand is strong. Consumers expect to be home and expect to ebb in and out of office environments, gyms, and so forth. Demand for Apple products continues to be strong. Of the folks who bought a smartphone in the past 6 months, we show 47% in the US bought an iPhone. And we show consumer demand for bundles to be strong. They like to save money. It takes away the complexity of choosing. So Apple's doing a lot of things right when we look at consumer demand today.
We saw the iPad really make a resurgence through the pandemic. What do you make of the relative weakness we're seeing in this quarter? Does it have to do with kids going back to school and us sort of moving into a new phase of the pandemic?
Yeah, it could. I think you're right. It could be a new phase of the pandemic. I mean, certainly it's not become the laptop replacement that some thought it would be. It certainly is a tool for those who are creative, those who are on the go. And I certainly think the strength of the media offering helps the iPad. But I think, one of the things we look at too is just, when we look at the Christmas season, we look at things like, 3G came around, a lot of consumers were forced to upgrade their smartphones. And I think we could also just be seeing a question of consumers' priorities during the holiday quarter rather than slack demand for a new product overall.
So actually, we are getting some headlines from the call right now, and Tim Cook saying that iPad revenues were lower due to supply constraints. So clearly, this is something that Apple is still feeling, and it's impacting the iPad specifically. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I don't know if there's more analysis that I can offer. Certainly it's tough. I went on Apple's website yesterday. I looked at the iPad Pro at the upper end of the line. I looked at AirPods. I looked at smartphones. I looked at smartwatches. There weren't many products that I couldn't get within inside of a week. But certainly, from the stories that I've read, it does seem like the supply chain, impacted their ability to deliver to consumers in the last quarter of last year.
So what else are you watching here? China in particular seems to be really strong. In fact, every region was strong, except we saw relative weakness in Japan. But the iPhone, once again, gaining that top spot in China after 6 years.
Yeah, so I think it's good to say. I mean, certainly, the iPhone or iOS isn't the dominant operating system in the China, but certainly Huawei has struggled. Xiaomi hasn't, come forth and, brought out a killer product that everyone wants. So I think it's a good sign. Overall, I think the other thing is, Emily, as we look forward, it's not just about the smartphone or just about the tablet or about the watch. It's about the ecosystem, including all of the services that go around that. And there isn't really a company that has a stronger, more cohesive experience offering that works throughout an ecosystem like Apple does. And so the more devices consumers buy, the more services they buy or service bundles they buy, the more likely they also are to be attracted to the Apple ecosystem. I'd say the second thing that I look at is the biggest hype or the biggest buzzword of the past 4 to 6 months in this industry has been the metaverse. And so I think as we also look forward and we think about, well, what is it going to take to create experiences? What kind of a headset? What kind of an ecosystem? Who has developers? Who has services? I think it's going to be fun to watch Apple on that dimension as well.
Tim Cook saying supply constraints were worse in Q1 than Q4, which certainly makes you wonder, is it going to continue to get worse? Is there no relief ahead? Moved on to talking about the iPhone now on the call. Best lineup ever, he says, the Mac setting a record as well. But I want to move on to services and, Apple TV Plus, and of course, this business that Tim Cook himself really bet on so many years ago and has, almost surpassed, just about everyone's expectations. Is there anything in particular on the services side that you're watching, especially over the next year?
Probably a few things. So one, certainly there's a difference between consumers using an audio service or using a video service versus paying for it. So one, we're seeing more consumers pay. The second thing is we're seeing consumers drawn towards the bundles, like the bundle that Apple offers that has fitness and music and video in it. They're looking for deals. Top of the list, they want to save money. Second on the list, they want something that's easy. Third on the list, they want to feel like they're getting a deal. And so the breadth of the offering that Apple offers plays heavily in their favor as well. And when we look at they're generating this like 19, almost 20% of their revenue from services, it's, you know, it's, and of an Apple number, it's a very, very big number.